Good afternoon and Jai Hind children. Welcome back to my English class, and today we'll be starting with a new poem. It's a very simple poem written by one of our great poets, William Blake. The schoolboy, that is what we'll be talking about. As you can see, the schoolboy, the title itself talks about how simple it would be, right? Well, Schoolboy, it's written by William Blake. Now, let me just talk about this great poet. He is an English engraver, painter, and poet. He was born in the year 1757 in Soho, which is a district in London. That means he hails from Europe. From his early teens, he wrote poems. In 1783, he privately published his poetical sketches. In 1789, he published a collection of gentle poems, that is, Songs of Innocence, and followed by this up with Songs of Experience in 1794. So let me just show you those two collections. So you see, this is Song of Experience and this is Song of Innocence. And I'll definitely share the picture of the poet also. His writings influenced other writers and artists. He's now generally accepted as both a major poet and an original thinker. And I want to also quote that he was very much influenced by the Bible. Okay. Now, well, as I told that, there was this Songs of Experience, and then it was, added to Blake's Songs of Innocence. Okay, now this schoolboy, it is a part of the Songs of Experience collection. That means it is one short part, that means one drop from the ocean of the collection of books, which was from Songs of Experience. Okay, so it is a part of Songs of Experience. Let us proceed with it. The Schoolboy is a poem written in a very pastoral tradition that focuses on the downsides of formal learning. Now, formal learning is nothing but education which was delivered by the teachers in a systematic, intentional way with a school or say university and all those things. Okay, so that is what is formal learning. And I also quoted one pastoral word. Okay, so let me explain that also. It is not, something to do with the pastoral counseling or something like that. No, it is not that. A pastoral lifestyle is that of shepherds herding livestock around open areas of land according to seasons and the changing availability of water and pasture. Now, why did I quote this word pastoral? Because when we'll be discussing about the poem here, we'll be talking about different seasons, how the seasons used to change, and that is how life is all about. Life is an amalgamation of all kinds of seasons wherein we undergo different phases. All right. And in this poem also, you'll find that the poet has very beautifully compared the natural way of changing of seasons, how the plants, they they keep themselves alive during the harsh winter weather, wherein you'll be finding that they try to keep themselves firm there during the hailstorms and the snow and all the harshness of winter, right? The cold, the chilliness. Okay, so that is what is being talked about, and that is the reason why I quoted this word pastoral. Okay, So now let's move on with the poem. It considers how going to school on a summer day drives all joy away. The boy in this poem is very much interested in escaping his classroom than he is with anything his teacher is trying to teach. That means the poet is actually, talks about how the child is not at all interested in receiving all the education, the learnings from the teacher staying in school. Okay, his mind is always hovering outside. He just wishes to be away from the school, away from the classroom. That is what has been talked about in this poem, The Schoolboy. Okay, I love to rise in a summer morn. So morn means, that is a short form of morning. When the birds sing on every tree, the distant huntsman winds his horn, and the skylark sings with me. Oh, what sweet company. So now, precisely in this first stanza, the poet is describing the delight of waking up in an early morning when the sun's rays, it's peeping from your window, from your curtains, and then it falls on your face like this, and then you are bound to get up by that summer, by those rays of the sun. And then during morning, what happens? You get to see the morning sun. You get to see you get to hear rather the chirping of the birds. Then you'll find all the birds leaving their homes and then moving out in search of food, and typical daily chores starts, isn't it? And that morning time is just blissful. It's beautiful, it's peaceful, it's full of calmness, right? So precisely the first stanza describes the delight of waking up to the birds singing, and a wonderful way to start the day, right? So now let's move on to the second stanza. But to go to school in a summer morn, oh, it drives all joy away. So now in these two lines, the poet is actually talking about the sadness of the child when that child recalls that, oh gosh, he has to dress up and then go for his school. So the child is not at all interested in going to school. Under a cruel eye outworn, the little ones spend the day in sighing and dismay. So here, uh, the poet is talking about how worries the schoolboy is to be at school, and how the thought of this stops his happiness immediately. When he starts thinking about the teacher and asking him to get up and then answer the questions and all, right? So that was very much there in his mind, and he's not at all happy to go to school. Okay, now let's move on to the third stanza. Ah, then at times I drooping sit and spend many an anxious hour, nor in my book can I take delight, nor sit in learning's bore, worn through with the dreary shower. Now here the bore means shelter. Shelter in the sense, I won't say that it's shelter like kind of a house. It is just a setup, like having table, chair, and place to sit. So shelter is not only home, it is something like where you can sit and relax. Okay, but here, poor little child, he's not able to relax at all. So this stanza in fact describes his school setup, his classroom setup, how when homeschooled you can sit happily and read, But at the same time, when I'm talking about school, there is no such freedom. You will learn what you are told to learn, then nothing more, nothing less. And the school does not give the child delight at all, according to this poem. Now, here I would just like to give you a kind of a picture. Like right now, what are we doing? We are doing virtual learning, right? So I don't know in what setup you all are in. I don't know whether you are going through my links, whether you are following my instructions. I'm not aware of that because I'm not able to see you, right? You all are enjoying a very comfortable setup at home, isn't it? Now, that is what the poet is saying here, that the child, if is there at home, can at least relax, has got no tensions, doesn't have any such class norms to follow, like he's not supposed to wear uniform 24 hours, all right, and he's not supposed to be disciplined the way the child is supposed to be in a classroom. Then he's not supposed to follow set of rules which we have for our classrooms and schools. All those things are not there at home. You are very much free, you are carefree, you can do whatever you feel like when you are at home, right? That means there is no particular stipulated time to do your work, although I would advise you all to have a timetable of yours so that everything, can be enjoyed equally. That is, totally apart from this text. All right. Now let's move on to the fourth stanza. Okay. Let me change my slide. Yes. Now, before I, move ahead, I would like to tell you, children, that we are dealing with precisely, I would say, three figure of speech. Number one, that is imagery, which you can find in the first stanza. Now, the second is the metaphor. And the third, that is very important, that is called rhetorical question. So you can make down, you can just jot down or you can note down what is a rhetorical question. Although it is there in your textbooks on page number 28. And let me just explain this. Now, a rhetorical question is one that is asked to create a dramatic effect. It does not require an answer, for it is obvious or understood. That means it is taken for granted that, if I talk about Mahatma Gandhi, I know that everybody knows about Mahatma Gandhi. He's not someone who is not known to other, like to people, right? Now, here in this stanza, how can the bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? So you see, this is a rhetorical question. It is understood, it is taken for granted that if a bird is caged, how will the bird, sense the freedom? Its freedom would be caged, its freedom would be bound, isn't it? And that bird won't feel like singing. The way the bird would have sung when the bird would have been maybe on a branch of a tree, or maybe sitting in that railing of your balcony, or maybe, just trying to peep into your garden, isn't it? Don't you think that is better than caging and putting the bird in a cage? Okay, no hard feelings, those who have parrots and all, but then that is just a gesture, right? Okay, so how can a child, when fears annoy, but droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring? Now, here, the, the poet is actually comparing the good boy at school to a bird in a cage, right? So, his potential is restrained. The child cannot be happy, okay, when the child is at school. All right. So that is what the poet is talking about. The poet has to say the child is given a natural environment, would learn better, would learn more easily. That will be kind of an experiential learning rather than, rather calling the child and caging the child in a classroom, and then, asking him to abide by all the rules and regulations and the classroom norms, and the way to go about writing, taking care of the notebooks, and the method of answering and all. So, these are very typical nitty-gritties of classroom teaching. Now, according to the poet strongly feels that naturalistic approach of teaching is better than this classroom teaching. That is totally poet's way of looking at things, right? All right, now let's move on to the next stanza. Oh, father and mother, if buds are nipped and blossoms blown away, and if the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the spring day by sorrow and care's dismay, how shall the summer arise in joy, or the summer fruits appear? Or how shall we gather what griefs destroy? Oh, bless the mellowing year when the blasts of winter appear. So, in this fifth stanza, actually, the poet describes how a school can never be fun, but it is just like, cold winter days blasting through the warm summer. That means here in these last two stanzas, the poet is making a kind of a request, a heartfelt plea to the parents. So now here there is an extended use of metaphor of the natural cycles of life. You can see that there is, we are talking about spring day, then we are talking about summer, then there is mellowing here. So mellowing here it is actually the autumn season. So that means the poet is totally talking about uh, the way, the natural process, the the way the life goes on from childhood to maturity. From maturity, you gain a lot of experience, and then you come down to old age. So now the same thing happens with the seasons also. Like you have spring, you have rainy, you have autumn, you have winter, and again that cycle turns back to spring. And then, of course, you have summer also. So you see, there is kind of a process which keeps on going and going, and same as with the life cycle of a person also. Now, I would just, like to point out here that the poet is pleading the parents that imagine if you are just, taking the happiness from the child from childhood by just, pushing him to go to school, to study and study, and not allowing him the carefree way, the natural way of growing up. So that is not done. According to him, if we do so, we are just taking away freedom from the child. We are just abstaining our children from the joys of childhood. Okay, so he has to say that he's actually illustrating how a happy childhood spent learning from the natural world will reap the benefits of a wise and fruitful old age. That means he is propagating natural way of learning, and he's saying that that is the best way to gain wisdom, instead of, getting it from the bookish knowledge from going to school. So he is totally and totally against this new way of teaching, right? He is always after the naturalist way of learning, that is, you can say, the Gurukul system. Okay, so that was it. Then one thing is that we have to take care of that rhetorical question. You may underline, how can the bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? That is one example. Then, how shall the summer arise in joy or the summer fruits appear? That is yet another example of rhetorical, this thing, rhetorical question. Then we have imagery in the first first stanza. Okay, now you have the use of metaphor also. Now I would tell you where is the metaphor. The metaphor is, again, you can say here in the lines, how can, yeah, I'll just show you. How can the bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? So, sit in a cage and sing, that is the metaphor which has been used. Okay. And yeah, I think that is enough. It's a very simple kind of a poem, very easy to understand, and basically we just need to take care of the theme of the poem, that is how a child is kept away from the childhood happiness by sending him to the artificial setup of learning, that is to school. And William Blake has been continuously, he's been just supporting one thing, that the child should not be sent to school. Instead of sending him to school, the child, if kept in the natural environment and natural surrounding, would learn very easily and would be able to experience the joy of learning. Okay, so that is what is very important as far as this particular poem is concerned. Now, in my next class, we will do a quick recap, and then, yes, definitely we'll start with the question answers, which I want all of you to do it in your notebooks. Till then, I wish all of you to go through the PDF, to go through, follow the link, and try and understand this small, sweet little poem. And then in my next class, we'll start with the question answers. Until then, stay safe. God bless you all. Thank you and Jai Hind.